start off by thanking the Honourable Member for Motherwell and Wishaw for all her work and also her parliamentary or party group. And we are all across the House grateful for those members across the different parties who were the first to spot this scandal and doggedly campaigned to bring it on the government's agenda, as well as the parts of the media agenda, which has, of course, been amplified by the recent television series. And I also want to thank other members who joined that group, both across this House and the other House, to continue to campaign for many years. And as has been stated today and on many other occasions, in this House, this scandal is one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in this country. We are now over 2 decades in this scandal with limited progress and hope or justice for the victims, though some considerable work in recent months has been taken forward, and I commend the Minister for his work, both from the backbench as well as the front bench, in doing what he can to address the injustices. The wrongly accused sub-postmasters have had to endure unjust prison sentences, family breakdowns, homelessness, bankruptcy, health consequences, ostracisation from their communities, and worse. That is also to say nothing of the mental health toll and stress they have all carried while knowing they have been wrongly convicted. As of the 10th of August 2023, the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry and court cases have heard that at least 60 sub-postmasters have died without seeing justice or receiving compensation. And tragically, at least 4 took their own lives. As many members have rightly and powerfully shared today, the impact of this scandal, is horrifying and wide-reaching. And I do not think any of us can truly understand the scale of what the victims have suffered. The Honourable Member for Motherwell and Wishaw powerfully highlighted how the toxic management culture is, and now this culture continues to be alive and present. She highlighted the scandal of the lack of openness and transparency and the spectre of some 40 management staff still continuing to be in post who have been there since the scandal began. And I hope the Minister can address from his own insights what is happening with those who continue to remain in management positions, because it cannot be possible or right that this continues. And if we do want to see a culture change, it would be helpful to understand how the Minister thinks that can happen when those who've been involved and present in the management at the time can take part in the reform process. Mr. Deputy Speaker, many of those affected by the scandal remain trapped in a limbo without closure or justice. Among many of the victims, there is limited faith in our justice system for the very reasons we've heard about in numerous debates and the Minister is well aware of. Since this became common knowledge, the public too have lost faith in the system. People are shocked and upset. They want change, and we must work hard to repair this distrust and damage that has been done. And of course, whatever we can do across parties to achieve that is vital if we are to make sure these scandals don't happen in the future. The Honourable Member for Inverclyde highlighted the appalling role of Fujitsu in the Horizon scandal. He rightly pointed out that the crisis could have been mitigated if those early IT problems were recognised, addressed properly, rather than not faced up to. My honourable friend, the member for Wansbeck, spoke passionately about the failure of the management and executive team at the Post Office. He highlighted the scale of the injustice and trauma victims have endured and continue to endure. They have been let down at every turn, and we need the government to act with urgency, the urgency that is desperately needed. The member for Chesham and Amersham spoke spoke about the horrific way in which non-disclosure notices agreements have been used, silencing victims through non-disclosure notices, as she has described in relation to her constituents, cannot be allowed to happen, because it added to the injustice of what her constituent and her husband faced. This prolonged the time it took to expose the scandal. So lessons need to be learned. We recognise the inquiry will highlight through its conclusions the lessons that government needs to draw on, as well as others. The member for Strangford spoke of the vital importance of improving the culture of the post office as we look to the future in what the post office can provide for communities up and down the country, and especially in rural communities. And as we have seen the bank closures around the country, the need for banking services and other services. So it's important that we work to ensure that the future of the post office is one that's fit for purpose, that there is never a scandal of this nature, and that it is we are properly worked through how we reform the post office for the good of citizens and the good of communities. And in that spirit, I hope the Minister will be able to tell us how he proposes, how he sees that future, and the role of communities and the role of those who have seen how things can go so badly wrong, so that their insights are built into how we shape the future of the post office, and of course the role of the key trade unions. Last month, the Secretary of State sacked the chair of the Post Office, Henry Staunton, stating that given all of the difficulties the Post Office is having, it's not just about Horizon, it's about the entire business model, how we make it work, and we needed someone who could chair a board that was able to deal with these things. Mr. Staunton was appointed in December 2022, so was not the chair of the Post Office during the key years of the scandal. In the debate, the Minister said that some of the past conduct and culture of the Post Office has changed, but that we know that it needs to change further. I'd be grateful if the Minister could outline what he believes has changed already in the culture of the Post Office, and what steps he is taking to make sure that further changes take place, and what the timeline should be in terms of seeing that reform process. And I hope that the appointment of the new chair can be a clear marker, and in terms of the steps forward in altering fundamentally the culture and management of the Post Office. During the High Court case of Bates versus Post Office Limited, it was stated that there seems to be a culture of secrecy and excessive confidentiality generally within the Post Office, but particularly focused on Horizon. This culture of management has been affirmed by numerous testimonies. Many of the victims of the scandal spoke of the fear they felt at approaching Wednesdays, the day where they, the sub-postmasters, had to balance their accounts. And we've heard from honourable members from their testimonies of the experiences of their constituents, sub-postmasters who are their constituents, of the terror that they faced when they were faced with these issues, not because it was their fault, but because of the failure of the Horizon system and the failure of the Post Office management. The Fujitsu whistleblower Nate Oro last week revealed how he, along with fellow staff at the Fujitsu call centre, would also approach Wednesdays with dread. They knew to expect the barrage of desperate calls of sub-postmasters whose livelihoods and lives were being snatched from them. Mr. Oro said that despite Fujitsu staff knowing that the software clearly had faults, they would be punished by leadership for sharing any of their doubts with the sub-postmasters. To have this constantly faced every week and silencing of staff across the organisation is hardly a sign of good management. These are the things we need to prevent. The former Post Office Chief Executive, Paula Venables, as we've heard, will be giving evidence to the public inquiry. It's really crucial that provides the evidence, provides clarity on what happened, and that serious lessons are learned. It's also vital that we recognise that when senior management failure happens, early intervention takes place to tackle them. and lessons need to be learnt from the experience of the action or inaction that took place by the department that was responsible, and those institutions that are responsible for oversight of the Post Office. It's important to also draw on lessons in terms of parliamentary scrutiny. Could more have been done to ensure that there was greater scrutiny? In terms of the lessons that we need to consider, should there be early warning systems within Whitehall to spot issues when members of Parliament raise these issues, or when cases are brought to ministers through officials? It is too often the case that individual cases don't get the attention that they deserve in Whitehall, and lessons will need to be learnt on that front too, working with members of Parliament so that we can build a clearer picture of patterns that emerge and delays don't take place before a major scandal is exposed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as we consider the future of the Post Office, given all that has happened and reported and uncovered about this scandal over 2 decades, there is rightly huge distrust, horror and dismay at the Post Office management and at the Post Office as an employer. Despite the hard-working and dedicated work of sub-postmasters across the country and all other staff, this scandal has made the role synonymous with being victims of injustice. The Citizens Advice Bureau reported that over 200 post offices have closed in the last 2 years, and that 1,291 post offices are currently deemed temporarily closed, but over half of these have been shut for more than 2 years. Post offices provide a broad range of services where communities can access cash, pay bills, deliver and receive mail, and they often act as a hub for communities. This is by no means an exhaustive list of their positive role and impact to our country. High streets have already been facing years of decline, and post offices closing down is a key service that leaves a gaping hole in our communities. Labour has pledged to stop the decline of high streets and bring much-needed services back to communities. Many post offices provide crucial banking services, as has been mentioned, for communities. Labour will accelerate the rollout of banking hubs to protect this service and help people deposit and take out cash, as well as get support and help with wider banking services. I hope the Minister can provide further updates, as I said, on how his department will reform the Post Office and how there will be wide consultation, including with the many unions and local players, to ensure that we have an appropriate service for the future. The scale of the Post Office management failing is seismic. This scandal has instilled distrust in the Post Office, in public contracts, and most worryingly in our judicial system. So I hope the Minister will be able to set out what action he and his government, because this requires a cross-governmental role too, will work to reform the Post Office and seek to restore trust in our system so that these scandals don't happen again. He's heard about the numerous scandals that have come to pass, not just the Horizon scandal. And can the Minister provide a further update on the wider independent review of governance around the Post Office decisions on remuneration? And also, another issue that came to the fore is the fact that there were concerns about racism within the way post offices, within the way that some of the actions took place by the management and some of the language and classification that was used in terms of racist classifications, which the Post Office said that it would investigate. I would be grateful if the Minister could look at that and provide any updates on that. And finally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful to all colleagues across the House for the tireless work they've done over many years, as well as in the other House, in highlighting this scandal and the dogged determination with which debates have been used to continue to keep the pressure on ministers, and we will all continue to do everything we can to ensure justice is done. Thank you.
Minister, Kevin.
Yeah.